Welcome to the Cosmic Check-In with world-renowned psychic and metaphysician Beatrex Quntanna. In this program, Beatrix will divine the deep spiritual messages from the astrological placements of the planets, offering insight and inspiration for the times ahead. Now, here's Beatrix.
Hi, welcome to the Cosmic Check-In. We haven't done it for a long time, but with all the excitement about what's going on in the cosmos, especially right above the United States of America, I thought it would really be a good idea to do a cosmic check-in, because I have heard from the woo-woo experts out in the skies that there's a lot of fear-mongering going on. And I always like to eliminate that. But with the transits, what you have going on a planet, well, first of all, there's there's a lunar eclipse and a solar eclipse in August. And the first one is a lunar eclipse, which deals with what you are going to basically transform, or what will be eclipsed on the inner domain of your being. And so it's more inner work that will be taking place during the first eclipse, which, by the way, is in Aquarius. And you know, Aquarius is a frequency that connects us to our future and the whole idea of how to make the future be a better place. So it's also a time when you join forces with groups and work on innovation. So we have Pluto, which is the planet of transformation, squared with Jupiter, the planet of abundance and wondrous benefic energy. So as you work with that, the two planets are going to come together and square off at an angle which will create an alchemy. Now, a lot of people get very scared of Pluto because it means transformation, and it also is sort of the harbinger of death. So, woo-woo-woo gets everybody a bit scared. But when it's connected to Jupiter, it's got to be benefic. So one of the things that I see here is, yes, we're going to do a lot of the death or transformation of old internal dialogues, internal processing that we don't have to have anymore, but it's also going to be a graceful personal transformation. So if you hold that Pluto square Jupiter in your heart and know that on an internal level you are releasing that which you no longer need in order to live a concept of grace. Now this square is going to go for quite a while. But it just starts gathering up speed during this eclipse, which adds to the excitement. But you could also look at, there's a belief system out there that that the eclipses create some sort of a what would we call a belief system that can become chaotic. But I feel with the Pluto-Jupiter square, there'll be a wide range of energy that can be quite peaceful. Now the Sabian symbol for this particular eclipse is the psychic in 1925 saw the degree of this particular eclipse with a man sitting at its desk. Now that is a symbol of success. So the concept of success is something that you will be working with on an inner level. And when you take that inner level, you want to wind it back 19 years, because the year of 19 years would be 1998, I think. So one of the things that you want to look at is whatever didn't work or whatever was heavy in your heart that you've been dragging along since 1998 will automatically be eclipsed. That's the beauty of eclipses, is that when the sun gets blocked by the moon, there's a snap that occurs in a couple of minutes, and all the strings that have been attached to that time period 19 years ago, bing, 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 get all erased. So if you want to really have a special experience for this first lunar eclipse, really spend some time and say, okay, where were you in 1998? So one of the things that happened in 1998, I was stunned when realizing it, but that's when Princess Diana was killed. And there's several documentaries on the TV right now talking about the reality of her death. Her boys have finally decided to open their grief up. There's a whole lot of talking about that. But that death, it was the death of an icon. You have to look at what she represented was the fairy tale princess that failed. Or she didn't fail as a person, but the fairy tale failed. So it was an end of a long-term memory, eons and eons of memories with royalty and princes and how they marry their prince. And that's done. There's much more reality. And you can look at that when you look at her son, the next king of England, married an American, not an American, but a very, very capable, very, not that she doesn't have princess qualities, but she's a real, authentic being that had worked in the real world and held a space in reality. So we don't have that icon anymore. And so you want to remember, where were you when you found out about her death in 1998? Where were you? I know where I was. Interestingly enough, I was at the gateway of the Enchantment Hotel in Sedona, and the gatekeeper came out, more symbology, from that and met me at my truck, or my SUV, and said to me, Princess Diana was just killed. I'm like, oh my God, here I am entering Enchantment Hotel. So it was a really good thing for anybody who is still clinging on to the idea of the fairy tale of the prince and the princess. It would be good to watch some of these documentaries because they're hitting hard with reality. So that whole element is being eclipsed. Also, you've got to look at the main thing that's going on with this Aquarius is we have to look at whatever was going on in your life, especially related to technology or computers or anything like that from that time period, and what you would be doing. I mean, I think that's when I got my first computer and began the long road of learning how to live a technology life. It's pretty interesting. Anyway, so what you want to do is accept the personal grace that goes with this square and look to see where you were in that time frame, and know that by the time the next eclipse comes along, which is towards the end of August, and that eclipse will be all over America. It starts in Portland and goes all the way down through the center of America and goes off on, I think, isn't it South Carolina, isn't it? So they say that it will leave a 70-mile stripe across our land for 70 miles, going that whole route. So you can imagine that there's 2.5 minutes that there will be complete darkness. And when the absence of light occurs, with the shadow going 70 miles wide all the way across the land, there will be some earth changes that you could be ready for. Now, who knows, maybe we'll get a new Grand Canyon, or maybe we'll have a river appear. But they also say that when the eclipse happens, the one thing that you can pay attention to is the birds, because they're very affected by the fact that the darkness will be available in the middle of the day. And remember, it is the birds that rule the atmosphere of our thoughts. So there could be some meridian through the airwaves that the birds will be chirping about. And if you want to do the highest and best good for yourself during this time, it's a great idea to meditate and connect with the birds and ask them what they're telling you, what you need to know. But this particular time, the last time that we had an eclipse in the United States of America was let me see, I have the date here, 1979. So in 1979, some major things occurred. First of all, Sony released the first Walkman, which then developed into what everybody has now in their right hand, right? And it cost $200, which is quite interesting. The first snowboard was invented, and Margaret Thatcher was elected prime minister. Also, Carter was president, and one of the things that when I looked up 1979 in the headlines, what was the most important thing, almost every headline had something to do with Russia. It was like Russia, 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 and I'm like, deja vu. I mean, it's like, here we go. So in 1979 is when Russia invaded Afghanistan. And that's when it invaded Afghanistan because it wanted the oil. And Jimmy Carter was president. I think I already said that, didn't I? Anyway, also 63 Americans were held hostage by the Ayatollah Khomeini. And I think one of the main things that Carter did before he left the presidency was get them freed up. The other thing that happened during that time period is that, in 1998, which is also, it's when the introduction of the snowboard actually the snowboard made it into the Olympics to be a viable sport according to their concept. And this year, skateboarding will be accepted. So I think there's quite a similarity there. Also, the Olympics accepted women's ice hockey. And then as we move into the 1998, you see also that was when Clinton was in total denial about his secondary life with the other people. So there was a whole concept of that going on in 1998. And then also I think it's interesting when you go back to 1979 with all the Russia, the next president after Carter was Reagan. Reagan, and he's the one that said, Gorbachev, take down that wall. So there was a whole lot of buildup that occurred during that time period. So you can see what's been happening from that point until now. And well, we have a lot of energy in the sky with Saturn being retrograde. Now remember, Saturn is the gatekeeper to your knowledge. It's the gatekeeper to your chart. And it's important that you realize that when Saturn's retrograde, it assists you in facing your lessons and or your karma. Pluto's retrograde, and it's bringing forth a time when you get to face your fear and transform yourself out of your fear. But you've got the help of Jupiter to make it a graceful experience rather than a horrifying one that takes you down to your bone marrow fear of survival. So it's important for you to realize that. Then you've got Mars in Leo. So when we can see this in our government, whenever Mars is in Leo, there's always an alpha male struggle. And or there's a game that they call in astrology top dog. And how many top dogs have we seen go bye-bye just in the last couple of months? And they keep barking louder and louder, out alpha-ing each other. It's quite interesting. Now you've got Mercury in Virgo, so you may find yourself complaining a bit. But remember, the true meaning of Virgo is to find the divinity in the details, not the anxiety. Okay, and then you've got Venus in Leo, which is dancing on the tabletops. Mercury, which is in Leo, which lets your heart speak love. And you've got the Sun and Mars in Leo, which allows for the true authenticity of your self and the opening of that. Very, very important to realize that this time period is all about opening yourself up to the authentic version of you. Alice Bailey, who was a major metaphysician in the 20s and 30s, she spoke of the 3 fire signs and the 3 lessons of fire. And the first lesson is the fire of Aries, which is the lesson of personal presence. So the fire that is in you throughout the lessons of the Aries is creating a space for your personal presence. Okay, then you have the lesson of Leo, which is the lesson of the fire of authenticity. So during the fire time of Leo, you come to know your authentic self or your reason for giving birth to that which gives you light. And that's where authenticity lives. And then you go to the Sagittarius fire, which is the 3rd fire. And that's the fire of understanding. So that the Sagittarius seeks to understand all the different religions, philosophies, cultures, and how do those blend into one teaching. And I find it interesting that someone told me today that on NPR there's more books that are being written of the comparative religions, and they're finding the exact same mythologies in all of them, which has been told before if any of you paid attention to Joseph Campbell's work in the 80s. So anyway, the question to ask yourself is, how can I be the most authentic version of me and be willing to shine with that? wherever Leo is in your chart will tell you what you chose to be loved and to shine. So it's interesting. Now, the one thing that I find the most interesting about this 28 degrees Leo, which is where this last eclipse is their Sabian symbol is a mermaid sitting on a rock, demonstrating a new human form. So I would say that we have moved ourselves to a point in evolution where something new will be appearing that will be quite good for all of us to get to know. And so I would leave you with that, knowing that a mermaid is showing the symbol tells me that it's not something negative. It's not something to be afraid of. When I first went into it and I said, okay, wait a minute, maybe the new form that she's showing us is that she's going to have legs instead of a fishtail to get around. But then I went further, and that could be one of the possibilities. But we also want to look at what aspect of human form could be born at this time. And what an honor to be on this earth at this time when this is taking place. So I will pray that your day in August is auspicious and that you will have the most benefic outcomes.